stripped to the frame, washed and waxed, new tires, cables, housings, bars, and bar tape. All bearings cleaned and repacked or replaced, wheels trued. Time to go for a road ride, for the first time in 3.5 months. It doesn't take 3 months to rebuild a bike. It can be done in a weekend, probably even one long day. But I was in no hurry because I almost never road ride anymore. 3.5 months between road rides is no hardship for me. This is shocking to those who have known me for a long time. In the 90s, I rode the road almost exclusively. I rarely went 3 days without a road ride, let alone 3 months. Even when recovering from broken bones, I used my recumbent to get back on the road as soon as possible. My years of big road miles, which I define as more than 5,000 miles in a year, lasted into the mid-2000s. Why so many road miles back then? I led 3 or 4 group rides each week, and those were often century rides. Mountain biking wasn't an easy option. Our current network of nearby single track was yet to be built, and the nearest trails, those on the Hoosier National Forest, were wretched to ride. And we live in an area with exquisite road riding, all of which starts at the foot of my driveway. So why have I shifted away from road riding? There are many reasons, but here are the 3 things I think are most wrong about road riding. 1, it's too mono. Mono anything is boring, even dangerous. Monotone, monoculture, monochromatic, which photographers and interior designers fiddle with just because it's so challenging to make monochrome appealing. With road riding, the mono factor is miles. The sole identifier road riders use when mentioning a recent ride is the distance. I did a 62-mile ride on Saturday. That's a metric century, you know. When someone proposes a ride, the first thing others ask is, how long is it? And it's understood that by long, they're inquiring about distance, not time. Sometimes those proposing a ride will mention a destination. Leroy's is a restaurant and store that is popular with road riders in our area. A bunch of us are riding to Leroy's on Saturday. You want to come along? Even there, distance is implied. It'll be around 34 miles. I can craft dozens of routes to and from Leroy's, and they'll all be around 34 miles, unless I make a point of adding mileage, in which case we're still focused on distance. By the way, I've put a link in the description to a 38-mile Leroy's loop that I created, and I enjoy it quite a bit. Once in a while, someone will throw in an especially noteworthy feature of a ride, a difficult climb or a scenic overlook. Even that's indexed to distance. I came back into Canaan on Warfield Hill. I was already at 70 miles for the day, and the climb about killed me. Number 2, venue hardly matters. There are some special road rides, Mount Washington, Going to the Sun Road, the Blue Ridge Parkway, and some really serious road riders aspire to riding some really serious destinations, such as Mount Ventoux or the Tourmalet. My buddy the late Byron Nagel did the Hilly 100 many times, and he enjoyed the climbing that the venue offered. But lots of participants in the Hilly do it primarily for the social component. It's a road bike ride, yes, but mainly it's a social gathering. Same for the 5-borough bike tour in New York City, RAGBRAI in Iowa, and other large organized rides. I did the former Jaunt with Jim week-long ride in Minnesota with my older brother Gary for several years, just because it was a chance to spend time with him, which is a social component. The broader social appeal was what brought in many of the other riders. But for the most part, it doesn't matter where you ride. A road ride is a road ride is a road ride. There will be pavement. Everything else will be dictated by the area in which I'm riding. Maybe some homes, maybe not. Maybe some hills, maybe not. Maybe farms or ranches or industry or woods or desert or rivers or mountains, or maybe not. The point is that road riding itself does not impart diversity to the experience. Just by way of comparison, I'll mention that mountain biking is all about venue. Mountain bikers do aspire to riding iconic trails, whether in Moab, Utah, or the North Shore of British Columbia, or the Dolomites in Italy, a destination they have in common with road riders. But they're also thrilled to ride nearby trails. And when relating their tales of brave daring do, they rarely mention miles, but always refer to the venue. Brown County, Silo Bike Park, Skullbuster. Each is a little more than an hour's drive from my house. Each is known for its unique characteristics, and each inspires excitement in mountain bikers planning their first rides there. To knit together points 1 and 2, I'll say that the primary way riders increase the challenge of road riding is to add miles. That's where brevets come from. Mountain bikers can add challenge by adding miles, of course. They can also add challenge by adding flow and jumps and rocks and roots and drops and berms and countless other features. And the number 3 thing wrong with road riding? Road conditions. They're generally terrible and getting worse. There's a link in the description to information on this topic. Cost is the culprit most of the time. There's a move to turn paved roads back to gravel to save money. Use the search string, paved roads revert to gravel, to get lots of info on this. That's great for those of us who enjoy riding gravel roads, but a real problem for road riders. Cost is also why chip sealing is so terrible these days. Good chip seal is a minor irritation on a road bike. Bad chip seal is a safety risk at worst and destroys rider comfort at best. The intent of chip sealing is to provide a wear course on top of the asphalt pavement. I put a link in the description to a fact sheet from the Ohio Department of Transportation that gives a nice summary of chip seal process. Cost affects chip seal quality in two ways. First, more time in the crusher drives up cost, so contractors purchase the coarsest stone they can get by with. Ideally, you'd want stone chips no bigger than the fingernail on your pinky finger, but pounding big rocks into pieces that small costs more than creating thumbnail-sized pieces. The photo shows chip seal done at the Madison State Hospital. My wristwatch is in the photo for scale. These chips are too large, but are typical of the material being used these days. The second way cost affects chip seal is that many contractors skip the final step of sweeping up loose stone chips. Loose stone is a problem anywhere on a road bike, and the piles of accumulated stone chips at intersections and on shoulders are especially dangerous. Cost considerations also mean that road conditions deteriorate significantly before resurfacing or reconstruction is undertaken. The degree of deterioration is an annoyance to drivers of motor vehicles, but a genuine safety risk to cyclists. I can personally attest to the risks associated with potholes. I broke my shoulder blade in a crash after hitting a pothole in 2004. Longitudinal cracks, those running in the direction of travel, will almost always cause a loss of control if a rider drops a front wheel into one of them. Roadwork itself often poses challenges. Detours can be long and complicated. Times allowed for alternating one-way traffic required during lane closures are unrealistically brief. Motorists can easily maintain 25 miles per hour through that one-way stretch, but few cyclists can do so. The light changes before you exit the construction area, and suddenly you're caught facing oncoming traffic with no place to go. I've written for the construction industry since 1995. I understand how challenging it is to get funding for road projects. I tell people all the time, everyone wants good roads, but no one wants the expense and inconvenience of road construction. You cannot have one without the other. Because the general public has a shared, irrational hatred for road work, governments put off doing anything to improve roads until it's absolutely necessary. Drivers and cyclists both complain about road conditions. Cyclists often do it from the ER. You didn't see risk on that list of wrongs. Risk does exist, of course. My two most serious bicycling-related injuries, those requiring an ambulance ride to the ER, occurred during road rides. One was the result of operator error, and I just screwed up. The other, as I mentioned, was the result of hitting an unseen pothole. The impact tacoed my front wheel and I went over the bars. Neither involved another vehicle. I have acquaintances who won't road ride because they just know the roads are filled with distracted drivers eager to mow down defenseless cyclists. Compelled by confirmation bias, they scour the internet for examples of cyclists injured or killed by such drivers. These accounts reinforce their belief that if one cyclist was injured somewhere sometime, all cyclists are at risk everywhere all the time. In truth, I have seen more distracted drivers whether I'm in my truck or on my bike. On the other hand, I can do a 50-mile ride from my house and see only 10 cars the whole time, all of which are being driven responsibly. I may feel differently if I rode where you ride. Your worldview is your own, my worldview is my own, and in my worldview, I know I'll be fine. You also didn't see mention of my intent to diversify my recreational pursuits in view of my age, which has been an integral part of my fitness training in recent years. Studies have shown that persisting in a single activity as we age allows us to retain ability in that one activity, but accelerates the loss of other fitness factors. I tell people I could have kept on road riding and stayed pretty good at it, but the outcome would be that I'd be the fastest guy in the nursing home, and that's not my objective. Based on my research, I've been mixing up my recreation since I turned 60. It's working. I think I'm probably closer to my peak fitness now than I have been at any other time in my life. But this switch in fitness strategy isn't specific to road cycling. The same would be true if I'd spent the last 30 years focused on running or swimming or any other physical activity. There's been a progression in my desire to road ride. In the 90s, when I was asked if I preferred road riding or mountain biking, I said road 100%. I said I like the speed and the sense of getting somewhere. In the early 2000s, when I was asked the same question, I said if I could go out my door and have immediate access to both good road riding and good mountain biking, I'd never leave the house because I'd be unable to decide. For the past decade, if I'd been faced with the same equivalent opportunities, I'd have been on the trails most of the time. Despite the downsides, however, I still enjoy road riding and it still has a place in my recreation regimen. It just doesn't have the prominence it once did. I'll change things up a bit for the behind-the-scenes supporters on my Patreon page. Instead of talking about video equipment, I'll talk a bit about this bike and why bikes like it continue to serve the needs of enthusiast-level riders. As of this posting, behind-the-scenes membership is still just $6 a month, and you get a lot of extra information for that little bit of investment. So that's it for what I think is wrong with road riding. And don't get smug, mountain bikers and gravel riders and touring riders and commuters. My What's Wrong With videos on those topics are coming. Thanks for watching. I'm Rich Reese, and I'll see you out there.